regarding the incident where the police officer, there were four of them, surrounded a man who had a sling bag. And in that sling bag, apparently there was a gun. And we're going to roll the video.
Tignan mo, ha? Huwag nyo alisan ng mata.
Dapa, boss, dapa!
Oo, sige, subukan mo.
Bakit? Anong problema ko sa'yo? Anong problema ko sa'yo?
Mamaya, malalaman mo problema mo. Sige. Wag kayong lumapit, ha. Wag kayong lumapit.
What was your first impression of it, and what do you think of it?
Well, it depends which video you show, right? I think there's 3 or 4 videos circulating right now.
Yep.
Through social media and other news outlets. The initial video I saw was the on-ground one.
Yep.
And that's when you can hear the exchange between, I guess, the people in the neighborhood, the police, the guy, the victim. And right off the bat, you see the guy gun drawn already.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he's talking to him. His hands are up a little bit, but it didn't look like he was responding.
Yep.
To whatever the officer was saying. Of course, we didn't know who that person was. We didn't know he was ex-military. I mean, they were saying it, but you really don't know for sure.
Right.
Right? I mean, you could say stuff and it's not super accurate. So initially, when I saw it, and I saw they gave him chances. They gave him chances to I guess to get on his knees, to follow the protocol, to follow the rules, but he didn't. And he turned around really quickly. Looked like he was grabbing something from that bag, and that's when the cop opened fire. And unfortunately, the victim lost his life. He put 2 rounds in him, and that was it. You saw him. It was kind of disturbing because you see him kind of on the railing, and then he just falls.
Yeah.
It's almost like you see the life leaving his body, his soul leaving his body at that point. So it's really a difficult situation because there's a no-win situation here. You can say easily that the police, that the officer with the gun drawn did what he was supposed to do. Because if somebody turns around and that's a gun in there, and you're giving him all the chances to get down, to follow the orders, and he didn't, and he turns around really quickly, looking as if he was grabbing something from that sling bag, from his satchel, you are supposed to protect yourself and the people around you.
Yep.
Right? The neighborhood, the other officers there. So you have to do it. Maybe he could have shot him in the leg. I don't know. But that you have to understand though that the times that we're in, it's high stress level. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of question marks surrounding our life today. And later on, we found out that the victim was a former military officer, confirmed, and he served in Marawi and suffering from PTSD. So when you're presented all of those facts, it's you can totally see why the officer had to pull the trigger, and you also have to understand that the guy has PTSD. You know what I mean? We know that's a problem.
Yep.
around the world, not just in the Philippines, but around the world. So technically, they killed one of their own um, who served in Marawi, and it's just a heartbreaking story. But what are you supposed to do if you're that officer? You have to pull that trigger. I mean, we still don't have all the facts, right? I mean, there's still an investigation going on. There was a report there's a police report that there was a 38 caliber pistol inside in the bag. Hopefully, that is true and not no
Planted.
tampering. Yeah, nothing. But if that's true, then I hate to say it, but I mean, no life loss is. I don't know if you can ever justify that, to be honest with you. But I think the officer had to do something, and unfortunately, I don't think there's a right answer, to be honest with you. But he needed to diffuse the situation somehow. Unfortunately, it came at the cost of a life of actually one of their own.
When he was about it looked like less than 10 feet away from the suspect.
Yeah.
And although he did give him warnings and everything,
Mm-hmm.
there are at that distance, there's an opportunity to maim him versus kill him.
Yes.
At that distance, that's a marksman, that's a sharpshooter. At that distance, who had aimed already at the guy, he could have just aimed for a leg.
Yep. Okay, I agree with you there. Yeah.
And I understand that when you're in that high stress situation, you have to make a decision. And I believe, unfortunately, that sometimes our police personnel don't get enough training. That when they're placed in a situation like that, that's high stress, where they have to make a decision, they make a bad decision because of the situation they're in. Now, mind you, that this kind of situation doesn't just happen in the Philippines. As a matter of fact, this doesn't happen often in the Philippines.
It doesn't.
This
Surprisingly.
this happens a lot in the States,
Yeah.
where you see a police officer using excessive force. Now, was the force used excessive? The guy was not responding to their orders, and that is a problem. I understand. But I will take the position that they should have just maimed him and not killed him. And regardless of the fact whether the guy's a military, he's mentally challenged, take out all of that. For me, I look at that as an irrelevant factor, because it doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
The person is in that situation, you will, as an enforcer of the law, you must at all times exhibit restraint as best as possible. And shooting him twice at point blank range, that was point blank range at that distance. You know you were going to kill him. When you're that close, you could have easily maimed him and diffused the situation. I think one shot to the leg would have dropped the guy and then just swarmed on him, or even the arm. If you're going to do two shots, one in the arm, one in the leg.
Yeah, no, well, again, when I say that he needed to pull the trigger, I didn't mean to kill him, right? I mean, they needed to diffuse the situation. And I agree with you in that sense that they needed to probably do a better job in diffusing the situation. But I mean, we weren't there. We weren't in the situation itself, and we didn't see that guy turn around as quickly as he did, grabbing something from the bag. So you're right. I think the training for everyone in these situations around the world, not just in the Philippines, but I think around the world, needs to be better. But when I don't think there's really a way to know how to train for something like this. Like, you can't recreate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't recreate that thing in training in any way. It's almost like a sports analogy. You can be in shape, but not in game shape. You know what I mean? So no matter what kind of training you do, unless you're there already, it's so hard to do that. Now, honestly, that I wish we saw more. I wish we saw have more information of why they approached him in the very first place. Right? What was the real reason? Like if he was just in the street by himself, maybe buying something or whatever, why would you approach him? But we don't know. We don't know those facts.
You're right.
So that's that for me. They needed to diffuse the situation. They needed to pull the trigger. Hopefully, I wish it didn't kill him, to be honest with you, but they needed to diffuse it somehow, some way. And you can't train for things like that. It's through really experience more than anything.
Yeah.
And like you said, something like this doesn't really happen in the Philippines that often. And unfortunately, in these stressful times, this is one of the few times that we've seen it. And we saw it on tape.
Yeah. Oh, which is, in the time of the internet, this would be the only time we see stuff like this, because normally in the news, they would black this out. I want to comment on what you said about, I wish we saw what preceded that situation, because you're right.
Yeah.
If they just randomly flagged them down for no reason, because let's say, for example, he was walking in the street when he wasn't supposed to, and then had him put his hands up and everything, that would be problematic for the police, because it's random. But from my understanding, and again, we don't know the whole situation, from my understanding was there was a reason for stopping him, because I think apparently he might have been acting erratically, and they knew he had a gun. Somebody actually, I believe, reported that he had a gun in his sling bag. So for somebody to see the gun in the sling bag, he must have pulled it out at one point. And they reported him, a guy was walking around with a gun in a sling bag. And that's why 4 officers immediately approached him. And that was the understanding I got. So with that knowledge, I understand why they approached him the way they did. As a matter of fact, his demeanor the whole time was very calm and collected. He wasn't screaming frantically like the police officer in Pacific Plaza.
Yeah.
That's problematic for me, because when you have a gun, you have to be calm and disciplined.
Yeah.
You have to show that you're in control and you understand the situation or the danger. So when you have a gun, you need to exhibit that. Otherwise, you shouldn't be holding a gun. And that's the problem with that versus this one. This one, he was calm. He was saying, dapa, dapa. With a gun, he was saying, dapa. And the guy wouldn't listen. The guy turned around. He gave him a lot of chance. The guy turned around, put his hands out. He was still okay. But as soon as the guy said something, I couldn't figure out what he was saying, and then started to pull the gun or reach for the sling bag.
Yeah.
Then there was no choice. But yun lang. Sana lang not the body. Sana, because if you hit him in the guy would have dropped immediately. That's painful.
Yeah.
And when the guy drops, it's hard to get a gun when you're on the ground on all fours, right? So yun lang. So
I mean that would have been probably the most ideal situation if there was one. Like diffuse it without unfortunately ending somebody's life. But that's wow. I mean, talk about a tough situation to be in if you're that